More than 40 people have been shot in just over 2 days.
It's an unfortunate reality, as reliable as the morning sunrise.
The latest deadly shooting was last night at 68th and Ridgeland.
A new day brings another tale of gun violence in Chicago.
This morning, a 17-year-old boy is dead after an argument on the court.
Tears you up. Tears you up.
Ricardo Martinez's son served 2 tours in Iraq. After returning home, he was shot while sitting in his car. The convicted gunman thought he was a rival gang member. That was almost 7 years ago.
You get up and you go to work and you cry all day, while you work, and then you get home at night, you look at the news, and it just feels like they just killed your son again when you see another parent going through the same thing.
There's not a day that goes by that either I don't shed a little bit of a tear or there's not a day. I honestly don't see it ever being a day.
Chicago police still search for who shot Monica Russell's 18-year-old son 12 times as he walked home from school in 2009.
Gangs like to claim stuff like it's a trophy almost.
How do you prepare yourself for that?
And just weeks ago, Tanita Cofield found herself faced with the same violent reality.
My son had been shot in the head, and he also had a gunshot wound in his left hip. So that tore me apart.
Chicago saw more than 500 murders in 2012, and in the first month of this year, more than 40. That's 3 times what New York City saw in the very same month. As that death count continued to rise, number 42 sparked outrage from the Windy City to the White House. A 15-year-old honor student gunned down at this park, only a mile from the president's Chicago home. And just after, she performed at his inauguration, along with her school's marching band. Idea Pendleton and her friends simply wanted shelter from the rain.
A rival gang determined, wrongfully, that these individuals who were standing at that spot were members of a gang and fired into the crowd.
The mayor put more police officers on the street, but this problem is bigger than the CPD.
We traced it back to this address.
A janitor by night, Andrew Holmes works as a community activist by day.
I'm on a mission now to just try to calm down some of this gun violence because I've been on both sides.
Holmes takes crime tips calls, follows the leads, and visits crime scenes to comfort victims and their families. Photos of 4-year-old victims cover his desk. This is personal. Holmes was shot in gang crossfire more than 18 years ago and nearly died.
It was tough. Still tough now when you think about it,
That pain drives Holmes to also reach out to gang members. They often call him Preacher Man because he's armed with a message of hope, even when convincing them to turn themselves in to police.
If you coming up with a gang mentality lifestyle, you can't possibly raise a son or a daughter. You cannot be a father. That's not a father figure.
Scripture calls for believers to defend the cause of the fatherless. That's what pushes these men and women to tackle the city's rising gang violence.
At the beginning of the year, I had a close friend of mine who was gunned down 7 times, shot for mistaken identity.
Youth pastor Keith Woodley works in an outreach program called GRIP. It partners with Chicago churches to put young men and women in contact with Christian mentors.
Real life would take you to prisons, to hospitals. You're getting the 2 a.m. phone call and needing to respond. But it's also inviting kids over for movie night.
Mentor director Brian Dye takes the ministry a step further. He lives and pastors a house church in West Garfield Park, one of the areas hit hardest by the violence. Bullets ripped through his home the night his family moved in.
We stayed up all night just praying, seeking out God, singing praises to him, thanking him for safety in the midst of it. And about 5 o'clock in the morning, my wife looks at me in the eyes and she says, Brian, I know what the world says we should do, but this convinces me that we need to stay.
That was 8 years ago. Monday nights, GRIP brings hundreds of kids and their mentors together for fun, games, prayer, and Bible study. The weekly celebration is called Slam. and it's loaded with life messages.
Don't let where you come from determine where you're gonna go. Like, just because you in a messed up predicament now, don't mean that it's always gonna be like that.
Faith and hope that can generate the power to rise above the violence. Ephraim Graham, CBN News, Chicago.